you today. Other people will show up. So let's get started. We still have the recording. Okay, this is our last class meeting, week 15. So next week is finals week, and you just have to make sure all your work is turned in and taking the final exam. You can do that anywhere. I'll be in the computer center here in Aptos for the normal class hours next week. If you want to come over there or Zoom in, I'll be on the Zoom as well. Need help with anything? But this is it for class meetings. Okay, so week 15, what we're going to do is, I'm not really going to assign you hardly anything to do because you already have a bunch of things you need to get done. So we're just going to kind of talk about some stuff. We're going to talk about what's called the blank page syndrome. That's the syndrome you get when you're staring at the blank page and just nothing seems to want to come out of your brain. We're going to use something called the Pomodoro technique. We're going to look at Kanban boards. These are all techniques to help you get organized and to plan your work, right? But there won't be any assignments or any quiz questions. These are just information for you to help you combat the blank page thing. We are going to talk about the last phase, the revision phase of the 3x3 process. And this is the place where you will submit your final assignment revision. But I don't want to say, wait till the last minute, but you have all the way up till the last day to turn that in. And then our grammar lesson, which we'll do in class, is about different number formats. So what we're going to do, the usual, read all the module pages. We're going to just go over lectures on the blank page syndrome, Pomodoro technique, personal Kanban, talk about the revision phase of 3x3. And then, like I said, there's the spot to turn in your final technical writing project. We're going to do the number format thing in class. There's a short discussion. And then there's a quiz this week, a very small one. It's only 25 questions. You could probably do it in 10 minutes, which is because I have not ever quizzed you on the questions for the last 3 weeks, right, from the last quiz. And that's all in preparation for final exam number 3. Final exam number 3, there's no writing. All your writing is for your final project. The final exam is just 52 multiple choice questions. All right, let's get into it. Let's talk about the blank page syndrome. Not too far. Too far. Back up. All right, what is blank page syndrome? So I think we've all felt this at some point. You have an assignment you're supposed to start doing and you're staring at the blank page or the blank screen and you start to feel a panic. I'm just looking at that blank page and you just can't seem to get anything written down. The harder you try, the harder it gets, the more empty your brain seems to be. For me, at least, it's very similar to those nights where you just can't fall asleep. You're laying in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking all these different thoughts about things you got to do and problems you got. And you're like, I got to fall asleep. And the harder you try, the worse it gets. But the difference between that and this is that they'll eventually fall asleep just from pure exhaustion. It may be the next day or something. But that blank page may forever be blank unless you can break the cycle. So I'm going to try and give you some tips on how to break that cycle. So why does it happen? Well, it can happen for a number of reasons. It usually occurs when your life is really stressful due to, all the things you got to do, work, family, friends, health, fatigue. You may be in a state of anxiety because you have this deadline that's just staring you in the face. But really, none of that has to happen for you to get stuck in blank page syndrome. It can just happen for no reason at all. And even if those things all are true, okay, so what? You still got to write this paper. So how can you combat this writing paralysis? So here's a few things. First thing, lack of constraints. So most people think like not having any constraints to a problem is great. It's like, oh, I have free reign to do whatever I want. This is great. It's not great. It's bad. Humans don't do well without some kind of structure. Having constraints allows you to focus on the important things. Too many choices means too many decisions you're going to have to make. So one thing you can do is instead of thinking about what should be on your pages, try to think about what should not be on your pages. Try to eliminate possibilities. Try to add in constraints. Embrace that deadline. If the deadline is in 2 weeks, like yours is for the final project, embrace that deadline. What can I get done in 2 weeks? Right? Be practical about what you can get done in the time you have. Don't do the other things, right? Now that you've got some constraints, you're like, I know what I'm not going to write about. I know what I can get done by the time this deadline comes up. Don't do the other things. Just do the things that get you there. One bite at a time. You ever heard this old saying, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. What that means is divide and conquer. Divide problems up into small bits, and then you can conquer each bit. Chop the big problem down to a bunch of little problems. Zoom out. Look at the big picture. Break that picture down into some parts. Break each of those parts down into some parts. Keep doing that until you get a part that's doable. This is true for most people, I think. Perfection is the enemy. If you're staring at a blank page, that means you're in the drafting phase. You're not in the revising phase. It's blank. You've got nothing down on the page yet. A draft is intentionally rough. It's not supposed to be perfect. It never will be perfect. You're going to improve it when you get to the revision phase, but that's a different bite of that big elephant, not for you to worry about right now. Nobody gets to see your draft. It's okay if it stinks. Give yourself permission to do imperfect work. But at some point, you're going to have to call it done. If there's one thing I want you to remember out of all this, it's this. Writing gets done. It doesn't get perfect. I still, every time I read through one of my assignments or pages on my canvas, every time I bring it up, I go, oh, that's not right. I made a grammar mistake. Well, I could do better. I'm in continually trying to perfect it. Here's another idea, time box. So one technique to break out of the cycle is, again, more constraints. Establish some time constraints. For each item in your to-do list, put a little time box around it. And it can be completely arbitrary. Just say something like, I'm not going to spend more than 15 minutes writing this introductory paragraph. Set a timer on your phone. When 50 minutes is up, you're done, no matter where you are. Only if you got halfway through, doesn't matter. You're done. Get up, move around. Reward yourself for getting through 15 minutes. Move on to something else. Come back to it later. While you're not thinking about it, your brain actually is thinking about it. Your subconscious mind is still working on it in the meantime. And you'd be surprised how many times this has happened to me where I have usually it's a software thing. I have a software problem. I cannot figure this out. I spend all day trying to figure it out. Totally frustrated. Go home, go to bed, go to sleep. Wake up. Got the answer. It's like my subconscious mind is working on that while I'm asleep. Here's another idea. Move on, come back later. So there's no law that says you have to write linearly. In other words, there's no law that says you have to write from the first thing in your outline to the next thing until you get to the end. You jump around all you want, right? If you're feeling stuck on something, move on. Come back later, jump around, skip to the beginning. Dive into where you think you have some ideas. Like if you're looking, oftentimes, you don't know what to say for the introduction or the closing because you don't know what you're going to say in the middle yet. So don't do those. Jump into the middle. Get your body paragraphs done. Now that you know what you wrote about, it's easy to go back and say, okay, well, here's the introduction. Here's the closing. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. Just get thoughts down on the page. You can tidy them up later. So I don't know if this is a good analogy for you or not. I'm saying treat your paper like a parking lot rather than a long road of pavement. I used to ride bikes a lot. And like you're looking down this long road of pavement on this long, lonely road, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'll never get to the end. Right. So instead of having that vision in your mind, think of it more like a parking lot. I could pull out of this parking spot, move over to that parking spot, stay there for a while, move to a different spot. Here's another tip: change your environment. Just some simple change in your environment can stimulate your creativity. Like, for example, if you're usually working at home, try the library or a cafe. Or at least tidy your desk and clear some space for yourself. There's a lot of times where I'm working in my lab at home and I got to stop. I cannot work any longer. Cannot deal with this. There's just too much stuff on the table. I got to put things away, get rid of things, pack things up. You could even split your assignment up into different chunks, each chunk doing it at a different setting. Even if it just means moving around different homes and different rooms in your house. Go for a walk, come back. Another tip: paper and pencil. The physical action of writing on paper with a pencil is just different than typing on a computer, just physically. And for a lot of people, this leads to different brain pathways being used, can stimulate different thought processes. And using that as a medium for what we call free writing, just doodling, it can be better than typing on the computer because you just feel more of a sense of play. It's like, oh, I'm just jotting down, doodling here. I can cross things out. I can erase things. Just, just a test, no pressure. Here's another idea: have a routine. So this is grounded in a lot of psychological research, but if you establish a routine, the goal of having a writing routine is to establish a writing habit. So if you've trained your brain to know, well, this is the time when we write, sort of like this is the time when sprockets and we dance, then it prepares for that task. You prepare it subconsciously, like your brain's already getting ready for that time because it knows the time's coming up. More psychological stuff: reinforce behavior, reinforce positive habits and discourage negative ones. If you accomplish a task, no matter how small the task was, reward yourself by acknowledging the fact you did it. Have a cookie, but don't reward procrastination. If you didn't accomplish even the smallest of your tasks, no cookie for you. Get rid of distractions. Difficult to focus on writing when distractions surround you, and wow, today are they ever around you, more than ever. Be sure you have a quiet, comfortable workplace where you won't be interrupted. Turn off your phone, close your email, put away anything else that might pull your attention away from your writing. No YouTube. I'm the worst with that. Finally, just be patient and write. Allow words to flow freely without concern about making sense. Write in a stream of consciousness. You ever heard that term, stream of consciousness writing? It means you just write down whatever's coming out of your head. It doesn't have to make sense. It doesn't have to do all the things we talked about as far as revision in terms of dovetailing and parallelism. Don't worry about any of that right now. Don't worry about spelling. Just write whatever's in your head. Don't stop. Yeah, don't stop to edit about worry and about grammar. Remember that writing is the only way to overcome the blank page syndrome. There'll be days when words come. There'll be days when they don't. But if you just keep writing, eventually the words will come. So don't be afraid of that blank page. Sort of embrace it. Let your words fill it up. Okay. So we're going to sort of talk about some of those things in more detail here. So we talked about time boxing, setting certain time constraints on things. Again, constraints are good. And one of the techniques for time boxing is called the Pomodoro technique. What the heck does that mean? Pomodoro is the Italian word for tomato. So this is a time management thing developed by this guy, Francisco Cirillo, a long time ago. And when he did it, he used this kitchen timer that looks just like the picture. Those are like super popular in Europe. And he used that kitchen timer to break up his work into intervals, typically 25 minutes a piece. separated by short breaks. And he called each interval a pomodoro, from the Italian word for tomato, after that tomato-shaped kitchen timer that he used. There are 6 steps. So before you get here, hopefully you've kind of like done a to-do list, and we're going to talk about that next. You've done a to-do list, so you have a list of things that need to get done. So the first thing you do for the Pomodoro is you decide on which of those tasks is to be done. Usually you have them sorted in some sort of priority. So you take the most important one. You set your timer, typically 25 minutes, but you can adjust it to different things. While the timer's running, you work on the task. You end when the timer rings. And you take a short break. So 25 minutes of work, typically 5 to 10 minutes of break. Then you go right back to step 2. If you hadn't finished the task, you keep working on it for the 25 minutes. Just reset your timer. 25 minutes is up, take the short break. If you did finish the task, go get the next task off your to-do, but you're still working in that 25-minute period. After you've done 4 of those, you take a long break, typically 20 to 30 minutes instead of the short break. And then once the long break is finished, you go right back to step 2 again. So it's sort of time boxing in little 25-minute chunks, 4 at a time, longer break. Okay, here's the important rule. Once a Pomodoro is set, it must ring. In other words, you set your timer, it has to ring. You can't shorten it. You can't say, I'm just going to stop now, pause. No. The whole point of this thing is to monotask. Multitasking is evil. You want to just have one task in front of you at a time. Okay? So think of the Pomodoro as this indivisible unit of time, and you cannot break it apart, especially not to check on chat, text messages. Any ideas or tasks or requests that come up while you're in the Pomodoro, just note them down. You're going to come back to it later. You're not going to do anything about it. And this rule about the Pomodoro has to ring applies even if you finished your task before the timer goes off. So let's say you took a task, you're working on it, your 25-minute Pomodoro, you finish that task. Well, according to our rules, you're supposed to go back and get the next task, but maybe you don't have a next task. Fine. Use that time to do something else about that task, right? Use the rest of the time, like improve your skills, improve your scope of knowledge about that particular thing, whatever. You've devoted 25 minutes to this, you're going to spend 25 minutes on it. More about it must ring. So obviously you're going to get the phone's going to ring, people are going to come in, ask you questions, whatever. You're going to get interruptions, right? So what do? Use this 3-step strategy to deal with disruptions. Inform, negotiate, call back. So number 1, you inform the interrupter, whoever it is, I'm in the middle of something. If they know what Pomodoros are, you can say, I'm in the middle of a Pomodoro. They'll get it. Step 2, negotiate at a time in which you can get back to them. Can I call you back at the end of my Pomodoro? I got 10 minutes left. Can I call you back tomorrow? Can I call you back at 4? Whatever it is. After it rings and you're out of your Pomodoro, you can then call them back. More. So in the event of those unavoidable disruptions, try to learn from it. Take your 5-minute break, start again. Track them. Why did I get interrupted? What do they want? Try to think of a way that you can avoid them the next time. Like maybe turn your phone off. And when I say take a break, take a real break. Don't just like, okay, I'm not still at my computer station. I'm stopped working on my Pomodoro task, but I'm going to go look at YouTube, whatever. No, get up, move, stretch, go to the bathroom, get more water. Make it a real break. All right. So here's a little video. Talks more about it. Let me make sure the sound on. Okay.
Oh, hello, brains. I just finished a Pomodoro. What is a Pomodoro? That's a great question. According to our How to ADHD dictionary, a Pomodoro is a short timed interval during which you work on what you intended to work on, and only what you intended to work on, until the timer goes off, at which point you take a break. See also monotasking. The term is based on a traditional kitchen timer, which looks like a tomato, or pomodoro if you speak Italian, and it was coined by Francesco Cirillo, who came up with the idea when he was a university student struggling to stay focused, which might be why a lot of people with ADHD use pomodoros. Trouble staying focused is kind of our thing. Sometimes we take forever to get started, sometimes we keep thinking of other things that we needed to do and doing them instead. Starting a Pomodoro gives us a clear signal to start working and stay focused while we work. We're still going to think of other things we need to do, but during a Pomodoro, instead of going to do those things, we write them down and keep working on the thing we intended to work on until the timer goes off, which gives us a clear signal it's okay to take a break. Francesco actually built a whole time management tool around this concept. Appropriately, it's called the Pomodoro technique, and you can check that out here. It involves breaking projects down into a series of 25-minute Pomodoros, tracking those Pomodoros, and using them to plan ahead. But like most strategies, it's not inherently ADHD friendly, so the brains I spoke to who use it have adjusted it to work for them. But a lot of brains use Pomodoros independently of the Pomodoro technique, in whatever way makes sense for them. Some use a Pomodoro to help them get focused on things their brain does not want to do, and then they just keep working when they get into flow because they find the breaks more distracting than helpful. Other people use a Pomodoro to make themselves take breaks from something their brain does want to do, like play video games, so they can practice self-care in between Pomodoros. Some people do mini Pomodoros, like 10 minutes focusing, then a 3-minute break. One even does reverse Pomodoros, a short time focusing with a longer break. Real tomatoes come in all shapes and sizes. Why not Pomodoros? So if we're having trouble getting started on something, we might ask ourselves, do I need a Pomodoro? If we think of something else we need to do during the Pomodoro, we can remind ourselves, nope, I'm Pomodoroing. Write the idea down and get back to work. If we need a little extra help staying focused, we might ask a body double to Pomodoro with us. If someone asks us to do something that isn't the thing we're doing, we can let them know, I'm in the middle of a Pomodoro. And if someone says they're in the middle of a Pomodoro, you leave them alone. Pomodoros are fragile. We must protect them. So now if someone says, I'm off to do a Pomodoro, you'll know that they aren't just going to go eat a tomato. And if your friends get confused when you start a Pomodoro, feel free to send them this video. I'd like to thank all of our supporters on Patreon, especially our brain advocates. Because of your support, we get to produce content that helps all of us understand and communicate our needs. Let me know how you use Pomodoros in the comments below, and I will see you next week. I am going to go use the rest of my break to go get some water. Bye, brains.
Okay, that makes sense. Any questions on that stuff? Pretty straightforward, right? Okay, so one of the central things to that technique is you have to have a to-do list, and it hopefully is sorted in order of priority. So you can just take the top thing off the list every time you're either done with a task or you're starting the Pomodoro. And there's different ways to do that. But I'm going to talk to you today about something called a Kanban board. We talked about this way back when we talked about information radiators very briefly, but we're going to talk about it in detail. What the heck is a Kanban board? So Kanban is the Japanese term that literally translates to signboard or visual board. And it was developed by Toyota way back in the 1940s. It was actually developed by an American called Deming, who went over to Japan after World War II during the Reconstruction and helped them get their automotive businesses and other things, you know, back online and working. And he did such a good job that Toyota came and ate our lunch at General Motors. And then General Motors said, yeah, maybe that's a good idea. And so they started doing this stuff. It's called the Toyota method. Anyway, it was developed as what we call a just-in-time system, which means rather than, in their case for Toyota, rather than have large inventories of spare parts and parts to build cars sitting there, it turns it around to be, what number of parts do I need just right now to get the job done? And then after you use up those parts, this little signal card just come up in the box saying you need to order more parts. That way you only have the inventory that you need. But we're going to apply this to writing. And we've adopted this in the software business for years now. So it's a way to manage your production flow, reduce waste, visualize work through cards and boards. Like I mentioned, it was originally developed to reduce inventories, but we use it for other stuff now. And as I mentioned before in the earlier module, it acts as an information radiator. So an artifact of this Kanban system is the Kanban board. The Kanban board is a visual project management tool used to optimize your workflow. And it represents your tasks by cards moving across columns. And the core principles of the Kanban board are that, first of all, it lets you visualize your workflow. Lets you see all the things that need to be done and what stage they are in. It lets you limit work in progress. So this is getting back to we don't want to multitask, we want to monotask to be most productive. And so ideally, you're just working on one thing at a time, but we know in real life that's not always the case. You get blocked by something, you need to wait till this person to get back to you or whatever. So maybe you have a couple of things that you're doing at the same time, but we want to limit that to a very small number of things. Not have like, in my entire to-do list, I'm just thrashing, going from one thing to another. So that's the downside of multitasking, is the time spent switching tasks. Huge cognitive load when you're doing one thing and you have to stop, put it away, go get another thing, bring it out, start working on that. That cognitive load is so heavy that if you're doing that a lot, that's all you end up doing. You don't make any progress on any of those tasks. You're just thrashing between them. Number 3, managing flow. Your focus is on moving these cards. You want to get them from the left, which is your to-do, to the right, which is the done. The last one is continuous improvement. So you can see if like cards are getting stuck somewhere all the time. You're like, okay, I have a bottleneck right there. What can I do to get those cards to flow? So Kanban board basically has columns that represent workflow stages, the to-do, in progress, done, whatever else you might need. And then in those columns, you can establish these work in progress limits. We call them WIP limits, to prevent overloading any one of those stages from having too many things simultaneously going on. Each card moves from the left to the right as it progresses through your to-do, in progress, done. And then you can add additional things, elements called swim lanes, which kind of chop the board horizontally. Labels, colors, all kinds of things you can do to highlight priorities and groupings. So like, for example, these swim lanes might separate different project streams. Like, okay, well, this is happening, this is also happening. And work in progress limits ensure that your team, so this can either be for you by yourself, or it can be a team working on something together that can all have the same board. Ensure that you're finishing tasks before you start new ones. So yeah, one of the mantras of Kanban is stop starting and start finishing. So stop bringing in new tasks that you're starting, but you're not really starting them because you have too many tasks going. So stop bringing those new things in, start getting the things that you're already working on done. So all these things I talked about can help either you or your team maintain clarity and drive this continuous improvement. So being able to quickly put a card in the to-do when you think of something. So remember back just a moment ago, we we're talking about the Pomodoro. You're in the middle of a Pomodoro and something comes up or something pops in your mind. Oh, I got to do that thing. We don't want you to stop and do it. Write it down. Well, here's the way you can write it down. You just quickly go to your Kanban board, bing, put another thing in the to-do, write it, you're done. Go back to what you were doing, okay? So you do not spend time on that thing right now. You just put it in the to-do and just be willy-nilly about the to-do. Don't worry about like if it's not important. Maybe it is important. You just don't want to forget it. You don't want to drop the ball. So be permissive about what you put in the to-do. You can always triage that later, right? Like, oh yeah, I put this in the to-do, but you know what? It's not important. I decided I'm not doing it after. Okay, but don't do that thought process in the moment when you think of the thing. Just write it down in the to-do, move on. So I talked about the stop starting, start finishing. Make sure you have those work in progress limits. And after you do this for a while, that action of moving something into done is like, wow, I love that feeling. We've had like almost fights at work with people like, I don't want to move to done. No, I want to move to done. Another thing to talk about with Kanban is it's a pull system. What that means is that nobody can push work into your column. Only you can pull something from the to-do into doing, right? So you're in charge and you're in control, and you decide the rate at which things get put in the in progress column. External forces cannot just pop things in your doing column. It doesn't work like that. Everything has to be pulled from the left. Keep pulling it from the left until it gets to the done. So yeah, like I said, we've been using Kanban method and the Kanban boards and software for years now. And the funny thing is, after you start using it, you're like, wow, this is a really powerful technique to organize my work and visualize what needs to get done. So I started using them for like my own life stuff, like, you know, chores around the house, whatever. It's like, I'm gonna use that same thing. So the software, you can either do it with Post-it notes on a physical board, or there's a lot of different software out there. We're gonna look at one. You can just use the software to do it. But I started using that software and I made it my own like personal Kanban board. And I thought I was being clever. And then it turns out when I was putting this thing together, that's a thing. Personal Kanban. Somebody wrote a book about it. So that's what we're talking about here. Using this Kanban flow technique, not just for business things, but for your own personal life and for your own personal tasks that you got to get done. Okay, so yeah, you can, like I said, you can just use Post-it notes on a board with some tape on it, or just a whiteboard with some markers on it, whatever. But there's all kinds of software out there. And one of them is a free thing called Kanban Flow. You can just go to kanbanflow.com. So here's an example of a Kanban board. And you can make an account on this Kanban Flow site if you want to. It doesn't cost anything. And then it will remember all your projects. You can come back to. You can have more than one project, but you don't have to. You can just use it for the day or whatever. So here I have created sort of an example for the final project, right? You can see that I have the sets of activities for each phase of the 3x3 here. And I've used color coding to show which phase they're in. And I have my to-do, in progress, and done columns. You can make more columns. Like, a lot of times at work, we'll make a test column. So like we'll do something that has to go into a test and the tester has to QA it, right? Or sometimes things get stuck, like I'm waiting for a part to show up that I ordered. It's going to take a week or something. You can make a new column. It's just like waiting or something, right? But the idea is that, you make up these things, you put them in your to-do, and then you can just drag them around, right? So now I have two things in my in progress. And these are the things you're working on. These are the things that you'd have your time box in there. Now, I've set a work in progress limit on this of 3. See, task limit 3. So what happens? I can move 3 things in here. I'm okay. So I'm sort of working on these 3 things at once, although that's not really true. I'm moving back and forth between them for various reasons. Maybe I'm waiting for someone to get back to me with some information, or maybe I'm waiting for a meeting or something like that. So yeah, ideally you'd only have one thing in progress at a time. And a lot of times that's true, but sometimes you have more than one thing in progress at a time. And if you're on a team, then each person will have at least one thing in progress. But I have a work in progress limit set to 3. What happens if I try to move more than 3 in here? It'll let me, but it puts a red bar on there warning me, look, you've got a bottleneck here. You've got too many things in progress, right? Get something out of here. Get something into done, right? So you'd be like, oh yeah, I can't start editing. I got to put that back. I got to get one of these things done. I got to get research into done, right? So that's the basic idea. Now, on any of these cards, you can add all kinds of things to it. You can put a text description in there. You can have different people on them. You can add these labels. Like I have a label called revising to show which phase it's in. You change different colors, put different due dates on them, all kinds of things. You put some estimates on how long you think it's going to take. But one of the things I like about this particular piece of software is it's got this timer thing in here. And you can do Pomodoros. So you can say, I'm going to start a Pomodoro on this thing. And you can change all the times and whatever, but the default is the 25-minute thing. So now I'm working on this editing task I'm in a Pomodoro. I've got 24 minutes left. And I'm focused on this, right? Got a ring. So I'm going to work on editing for the 25 minutes. And after 25 minutes is done, I can take the 3-minute break, come back to it. Okay. So that's sort of a quick overview of Kanban boards. Super powerful. So I'm going to do what I told you never to do. I'll stop this Pomodoro. It gives you little hints like, I know that you finished this task, but you're supposed to continue in your Pomodoro interval and do other things about that task, like learn more about it. Stuff. Okay, so that's the idea of that. And here's a little video, 4 minutes. That'll take us just about up to break time.
If you've made any attempts to improve your productivity, you've likely come across a ton of different methods and techniques with varying degrees of strengths and weaknesses. Productivity is essentially all about finding what works for you and experimenting till you find an approach that gives you the results you desire. A lot of it comes down to organization and prioritization, and arguably the most effective of those techniques is the personal Kanban system. Before we jump in, gently caress that like button and subscribe with your notifications turned on to stay in the loop on the monthly releases on this channel. Alright, this is the personal Kanban. The personal Kanban is a task management system that was first introduced in the book Personal Kanban, Mapping Work, Navigating Life. It utilizes the concept of lean manufacturing and applies it to personal and professional productivity. At its core, it provides a framework for following through on your work and improving your prioritization. The system essentially has just two principles. The first is to visualize your work. This means that at any stage, you should be able to physically look at your overall workload and the tasks that you have to perform. By doing this, you will get a sense of what to prioritize and be able to measure how much time to allocate to each item. It's been said that 90% of the information processed by our brain is visual, so Kanban takes advantage of this by giving us visual aids to organize our tasks. The second principle is very important, and it is to limit your work in progress. This means that no matter what, you have to impose constraints on the number of things that you're working on at any given time. When you stick to this principle, you'll find that you'll avoid unproductive habits like multitasking simply to get more stuff done. I've made an in-depth video on why multitasking negatively affects your productivity right up there. Definitely check it out if you want to know more. One of the mantras of Kanban is to stop starting and start finishing. So it forces you to be selective about how you approach new tasks and focus on completing what's already on your to-do list. So how do you set up your to-do list by implementing personal Kanban? Well, it's first recommended to lay out your tasks in front of you. You could use a whiteboard, your wall, or even create a spreadsheet so that you can actually view what you're working on. Another program that's quite perfect to set up your personal Kanban is called Trello, which is great because of how versatile the interface is and how easily you can move your items around. Kanban then involves breaking your tasks down into 3 categories: to do, doing, and done. This is fairly self-explanatory, but the thing to note is that your doing section consists of what you're currently working on, which can subsequently be broken down by priority or importance. The to-do section exists to keep you informed of what you have upcoming and how best to manage your time. And the done section is primarily there to serve as a boost of motivation when you look at the amount of things that you've actually completed. If you prefer, you can also use post-it notes for individual to-dos. This makes them easy to move without rewriting. Additionally, post-it notes come in different colors, which gives you an easy way to organize your Kanban by priority. Now you might be thinking, alright Vihan, I get the visualize your work part, but how do I implement the limit your work in progress principle? Well, on your Kanban board, you can define the maximum number of tasks you will work on at any point. Under the doing section, you set a limit for the number of items that can fall into this category at once. It might initially feel like you're setting constraints on yourself and doing less work, but over time, this will end up being more productive for you because you can focus all of your energy towards getting a small number of items done so that you can quickly move on to the subsequent tasks and draw higher quality results. If you find yourself struggling with a multitude of priorities and an overwhelming workload, incorporating personal Kanban might be exactly what you need. The great thing about this is how adaptable this technique is to suit you in exactly what you need. It's simply a way of approaching your to-do list with thoughtfulness and intention. And before you know it, prioritization will suddenly come a lot easier to you. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe with your notifications turned on for more handy productivity tips and techniques just like this. See you next time.
Okay, and I got transcriptions here if you need them. Okay, let's do our break. 10-minute break. We're back. Okay, so I mentioned at the beginning, I don't have a lot of assignments for you this week because you're supposed to be working on your final project and you have a quiz this week as well, a short one. So those are the things you should be focused on. And then your final exam next week. Also, for those of you that might have missed it, there's no class meeting next week, finals week, because we don't have access to this room. I will be in the Aptos CTC in person and on Zoom. If anyone needs help with anything while they're doing their quiz or finishing up any of their last assignments or their final project. So this is our last class meeting. Okay, so the one assignment, well, I have two. We're going to do the grammar one in class, but the only assignment I have here is just this place for you to submit your final project revision when you are done. If you're done, great, submit it now, but you have until the end of the semester to get this in. So, we talked about each week, we talked about one of the phases. So this is the last phase. And the activities in the phase are editing, proofreading, and evaluating. So I'm just going to talk about these a little bit. So editing, this is where basically you use everything we've gone over. If you took 156, everything in 156, everything in 157, this is where you apply it. And I gave you some bullet list things here, avoiding bias words. We didn't really talk about that in 157. That was more from 156 thing, but that's things like you want to use the term firefighter instead of fireman. Anything that shows bias on gender or age or ethnicity, anything like that. What's another example? Like, oh, the ladies in the secretary pool. No. Workers in the secretary pool. Cultivating the U view, that was another 156 thing, but we did talk about it here a little bit, where you want to, target your writing to the audience and what you can do for them. Maintaining positive tone, creating parallelism in your bullet items, dovetailing sentences into paragraphs. Another thing we didn't talk much about this semester, editing out long lead-ins, redundancies, filler, empty words, avoiding cliches, slang buzzwords, looking for those buried verbs. Those are verbs that don't you sort of neuter down so that they don't show the action. Things we did study this semester: forming noun plurals, noun possessives, using pronouns that match their antecedents, using the active voice when possible or when it's your choice to. Combining the clauses correctly, all the different sentence types, avoid dangling or misplaced modifiers, making sure verbs agree with their subjects, stuff we covered, correcting comma, colon, semicolon use, constructing good paragraphs, Make sure you're using A versus and, there, and 222 correctly. Make sure you've got your bibliography and your citations. And then today we're going to talk about number formats in our grammar lesson. So those are all the things you should be like looking out for while you're editing. The next action in this phase is the proofread. So this is best if you can have a partner help you do this, because as the writer, you often don't see the forest because of the trees, kind of a thing. Can be a mistake staring at you in the face, but since you've been looking at it for so long, you just don't see it. So if possible, have another person help you. It also helps to just put it aside for a day, come back to it with fresh eyes. This is where you need to pay attention to your spelling and grammar, formatting differences. Let Word help you. If you've got any red or purple squiggles, take care of those. Basically, you just want to slow down, read the document over and over a couple of times. Try and fix as much as you can. But remember, you got a deadline, and we're not looking for perfection here. We're looking for done. And then the last activity in this phase is evaluate. So after you've like, okay, this is my final revision, I'm going to check this in. You just want to take this one last step and evaluate against your pre-writing problem and purpose statements. Did you cover everything you meant to? You might have to do another iteration to, oh, I forgot to talk about that. I got to go back. I got to draft it. Got to revise it. Got to proofread it. And even if you don't have a hard deadline, which pretty much never, you still might want to time box these activities, giving them only a certain amount of time before moving on or putting it aside, just so you can make some progress. So the goal for this assignment is to do those things: edit, proofread, and evaluate your final draft. And once you've done all those, you will submit here. And it can be a Word file if you decided to do Word file. It can be a PDF file if you decide to do that. It can be a PowerPoint if you decide to do that. That was up to you in your pre-writing phase to decide what best media channel for this. So nothing really to do at this very moment. Just make sure you're working on this. Get it into here before the end of the semester. Okay, so that brings us to this week's grammar. And this week's grammar is number styles. So up to now, I've been nagging some of you in the corrections about our one number convention that we had, which was a number between 0 and 10 should be spelled out, and numbers from 11 upwards are written as digits. So that was our convention. And that's true for this class, but there's really a bit more to it than that. And especially as you get into technical writing, there's going to be a lot of numbers, and they're going to appear in all kinds of parts of the sentence in all different ways. So there really is no like grammar rule about presenting numbers. There's just conventions. We use that 0 to 10 convention. Other people use 0 to 9, with 10 being the digits. Conventions vary. But the suggestions I'm going to give here are usually used one way or another. Okay, so the base rule is still your first go-to. It's like, okay, small numbers 0 to 10, I write those out. All right, but then there are some exceptions. So when we're writing about measurements, dollar amounts, percentages, we prefer to use the digit format. So here's some examples. Our sales have increased 5% this year. So hey, 5, that's a number between 0 and 10. I should write that out. Well, not in this case because it's a percent. So we use the digit, 5%. Okay, so that's percentages. Dollar amounts. You owe me $5. Well, note, since I have the dollar sign there, I don't need to say the word dollars. I already have. You can do it either way, either number $5 or dollar sign. And then anything that we're measuring, whatever it may be, like in this case, the resistor measured 7K ohms. We use the digit, we don't write it out. So that's percentages, dollar amounts, measurements. Okay, the next thing, when you're comparing numbers 10 and below with other numbers that are beyond 10, rather than have a mishmash of the two different, writing out or digits, we just do digits for all. So here's the example. Sarah ordered 17 books. Okay, well, that's our normal thing. Jim ordered 2. Here we would have said TWO, but because we're comparing it with 17, We want them all to be consistently in the digit format. The Jim ordered 2 and Raj ordered 132. When titrating the solution, add 2 milliliters of reagent to 100 milliliters of water. Since we have the 100, it's already digits, keep them all digits. All right, next one. We're writing out fractions. We use this format with the dash. 1-4th of the estate will go to the grandson. We took the poll and 2-3rds of our employees, like an employee Jim. Okay, next one. This is obvious, but I'll say it. When writing data in spreadsheets, obviously, if you want to do something with those numbers, like formulas or whatever, they have to be numeric. So you can't write out numbers. If you write out anything in the spreadsheet knows, oh, that's a text. That's not a numeric thing. It just leaves it as text and you can't work with it. All right, next thing. We've kind of already talked about this with the comma thing, but for dates, times of day, addresses, identification numbers, we use digits. So we don't write out December 2, TWO, wouldn't do that, right? We use digits. Same for time, same for addresses, and any kind of identifying number like room 8. All right, next one. If it happens to be at the beginning of a sentence, we don't use the digit there, even if it's a small digit, we write it out. So like in this example, 6% of the group failed. And since we're writing out the number, we don't use the percent sign, we write out percent. And the last one, if there's a combination of things and it's kind of unclear, make one of them into digit format and the other one into written out. So here's the example. The club celebrated the birthdays of 6 90-year-olds. If this was the number 6, that would be confusing, right? 690, your brain would be like, well, what is it, 690? What? So we just mix it up. We write one out, put digits for the other one. Okay, so here is our assignment. Let me go into student view. We're going to copy these sentences and correct them. All right, let's make it bigger. Bigger. Okay. Bigger. There was only a 2% raise this year. So what do we want to fix here?
Right, I'll make it number 2 and percent sign.
Exactly. That's our first rule, right? Oop. Lost my number. 2% raise this year. That toy cost $2. What do I want to fix here? And we're talking about measurements, percents, and money. We're going to use the digit format. And since I'm using the dollar sign, I don't need to say the word dollars. Which brings us to the next one. You owe me $5. What's wrong with this? Got the dollar sign, don't need the word dollars. We measured 3 inches of rain. Again, percents, money, and measurements. Digit format. Right? What about number 5? I saw 1 parrot, 13 swallows, and 42 crows. What's wrong with that?
There should all be numbers.
They should all be numbers, that's right. If there's 1 in there or more that's over the 10, then all of them, just so they all match. 1/4 of the cake was eaten. What's wrong with this? Fractions, dash. December 12, 1969. We don't write out dates. So 12, 1969. None of you were even born. Same thing here. The meeting is at 8 a.m. The times of day, dates, use digit format. Okay, what's wrong with number 9? 6% of the group failed. What's wrong with that?
It's supposed to have the percent sign.
Well, we
Right?
We can do that or not do that?
Oh, because it's starting with a 6 on the beginning, so write it out.
That's right, that's right. So we could say 6%, or we could say 6%. Since we're writing it out, probably want to stay with writing out the percent instead of the sign. The sign kind of only goes with an actual digit. What about number 10? The club celebrated the birthdays of 6 90-year-olds who were born in the city. 690. Oh, that's awkward, right? How do we fix that? We just write one of them out. That's it. Everybody get that? Tell me when you got it.
Yeah, I got it.
You got it? Everybody got it? Okay. Down to 100%. Any questions on any of that number format stuff? Well, this would be a good one for me to put into the reference section. Maybe I'll make a little document out of this and put it in the reference section so they can always, like, oh, what was I supposed to do there? You're in the middle of writing. What was I supposed to do there? Let me look at the reference section. See if there's a cheat sheet for that. I'll do that today. Okay, so you have quiz number 3. I know this is kind of harsh. I have quiz 3 this week and then exam 3 next week, but we're out of time. And the reason I have the quiz is that I haven't given you any questions on modules 10 through 14. So there won't be anything about module 15. Again, those were just things to help you break out of the blank page syndrome. So there's only, I think, 20 questions here, really easy, 25 questions. Should be able to do it in like 10 minutes, bang, bang, bang. And the whole point of doing these quizzes is this is your precursor to the exam. We've always had quiz number something, exam number something, and the quiz number something is the study guide for the exam. So think of this as your study guide for exam 3, but you get points. So yeah, just kind of get that done, right? Get that done and out of your way. So you can focus on the final project and any missing assignments that you have. And even on the missing assignments, you might want to cherry pick those. You know, there's this new what if thing in Canvas where you can go into your grades and go like, well, what if I did do this assignment? How would that change my grade? You can sort of cherry pick. Oh, that's a high value one. The discussions are so easy to do. So many points to sit in there. Just go in and do a discussion in one sentence. Bang, bang, bang. Answer somebody. Bang, bang, bang. You get all these points. Those are easy, low hanging fruit. And then there's a discussion. So I gave you all kinds of techniques to break out of blank page syndrome, but do you have any ideas of your own, or which ones of those that I gave you actually work for you? And which ones don't work for you, or which ones have you modified? So we're just looking for you to share, you know, things that work for you with the other students. That's a quickie. And that's it for this week. So what did we do? We applied the revision phase. Hopefully you're in the revision phase. If not, you got to get on that. Talked about all different ways of combating the blank page syndrome, and we talked about the different number formats. What's next? We take final exam number 3. Again, no class meeting. I'll be in Aptos right after class here, and also on next Wednesday. I'll be over there. If you want to come in, great. If you want to zoom in, great. If you want to just do it on your own, that's up to you. Any questions on any of this stuff? Nope. Okay, that's it for today.